So actually today we are going to start a new thing. So that is basically going through one of the books compiled by Most Venerable Katukurunde Jnanananda Mahathero. So basically this is a very well-known book, particularly among the Vipassana meditators as well as some scholars who are fairly interested about how various conceptual proliferations happen within the mind. So he has done a great job in compiling this book, taking various information, associating various sources, not only from the canon, but even from outside. So he has compiled a comprehensive book. So we are trying to go through it and trying to understand its practical usage also in our practice. So that is why we are taking it into the kind of a discussion. So for today onwards, therefore, we are going to take Concept and Reality book for the discussion, and it is available in the website, which is dedicated to Most Venerable Katukurunde Jnanananda Mahathero. The website is called seenthroughthenet.net. So that is the website. All of you can go through that website and you can download the sermons as well as the books available in Sinhala language as well as in English language, so that you can get some thorough understanding, particularly with respect to the early Buddhist teachings and his Dhamma sermons, which are quite deep and associating the Sutta Pitaka mostly, and quite relevant to the practice, particularly as we are growing in our practice, particularly in the Vipassana. So certain amount of knowledge is also necessary about the Buddha's teaching, so that our understanding, our experience can be very much reinforced as per Buddha's teaching. Because sometimes otherwise we don't know whether our path is correct, or what we are experiencing is correct, or have we gone somewhere wrong. So such kind of doubts could arise. But when our experience is tallied with the Buddha's teaching, particularly with the Sutta teachings, there we can understand, okay, my understanding is this, Buddha has mentioned like this, my experience is this. So how about the relationship? Am I going through the correct path? Have I deviated from the path? So likewise, such kind of reflections, time to time, is quite useful. And that's why we are trying to take this sutta, or rather this book, for our consideration. So since Saman is now ready with reading the book, so I invite Mr. Saman to read the book. Time to time, I'll interrupt and do a little bit of explanation what is mentioned there. So we will start with the first chapter, and I invite our good friend Saman to start with the first chapter.
Avasarai Bhante. I'll start from the first chapter. Papancha and Papancha Sanya Sanka. Papancha, a key word in the Sutta terminology. The term Papancha, let me share the screen. I think you also can see it. Yeah, yes. Just one sec. Papancha and Papancha Sanka, Sanya Sanka. Papancha, a key word in the Sutta terminology. The term Papancha, as it occurs in the Pali Canon, has presented. I hear echo.
Yeah, we can hear it properly.
Okay. The term Papancha, as it occurs in the Pali Canon, has presented considerable difficulty of interpretation. Attempts at its definition by the commentators as well as by the present-day scholars have given rise to divergent conclusions. It is, however, generally agreed that the determination of its significance is fundamental to a proper understanding of the philosophy of early Buddhism. In canonical passages of the term appears in variety of forms and associations, sometimes as a verb or a verbal derivative. Papanchati, papancha yanta, papanchita, and sometimes as part of a compound, papancha sanya, papancha sankha, papancha sanya sankha, papancha sanya sankha samudacharana panyati.
Samudacharana panyati.
Samudacharana panyati. Papancha sankha, papancha panya,
Pahana. Papancha sankha pahana.
papancha sankha pahana. Papancha
Upasama.
vupasama. Papancha nirodha.
Chinna papancha.
Chinna papancha. Papancharama. Papancharati. Papancharati.
Papancharama and then papancharati.
Its antonym too is seen to occur even beside it in certain contexts. Nippapancha. Nippapanchada.
No,
Nippapancha. Nippapanchapada. Nippapanchapata. Nippapancharama. Nippapancharati. Appapanchang.
Appapanchang, yes.
Appapanchang.
Correct.
This variety of usage is, on the one hand, greatly facilitates our quest for a definition, while, on the other, it imposes an extracting test of validity for whatever definition we venture to offer.
So let me give a little explanation here. So actually this is a kind of a book compiled by Most Venerable Thero before he actually ordained. While he was as a lecturer at the University of Peradeniya, he has compiled this, but was not published. And before it is being published, he became a monk. And later, actually, the very kind of draft was somewhat known to Most Venerable Jnanaponika Mahathero. And after the ordination of Katakurunde Jnananda Mahathero, so this Most Venerable Jnanaponika Thero came to meet Jnananda Thero, and he asked the original, you mean the draft. So that Jnanaponika Thero is the one who understood the beauty and the depth of this compilation, and he is the one basically encouraged Jnananda Mahathero to publish it. So it is then published under the BPS, and it has taken wide popularity, particularly among the practitioners as well as the scholars. And since it is a kind of an academic document, so he has used fairly some deep terminologies, not typical mundane kind of English, but rather some little, scholarly language being used. And on the other hand, the subject is also somewhat deep. So that's why in a way, when we are talking a deep subject, so rather than using a mundane type of language, so he has used a fairly scholarly type of language. Anyway, since it has a fair connection with some practical usage in our practice, Vipassana practice, so we need to understand what he's trying to convey, and we need to understand what is the message and how we can learn from it, how we can apply that to our own practice. So that is what we are trying to do. Not that we are trying to give different interpretations and override Most Venerable Thero, or no, we can trying to deny whatever he say. So rather it's a kind of an appreciation, and again trying to learn from what he has mentioned and trying to incorporate his knowledge, his indications available in this book to our own practice. Now, since it's a kind of a scholarly article, so basically he is now organizing the book like in a proper manner, a kind of a systematic way. So first of all, he is trying to find out the proper definition for this papancha. The term papancha, he mentioned, is not yet properly widely recognized or understood within the Theravada tradition. So it seems like with time it has lost its proper position or the importance due to certain reasons. Now he is trying to recognize its proper connotation, its proper understanding, proper definition. Now, in order to understand the proper definition, he is now using its usages at various places, either like a compound word or either like a verbal derivative directly as a verb. So different usages are there. You know that in the grammar, so different usages are there, maybe as a verb, as a noun, etc., etc. So at various suttas, now he's going through various suttas and trying to find out where the papancha word has been used. And sometimes directly the papancha word is available, but not every time. At some certain places, the term is like papancheti, that means the verbal form, as a verb form, or as a verbal derivative. Papanchayat, papanchayanta, papanchita, and then as a compound, that means compounding with, joining with various other terms, like papancha sanya, papancha sankha, papancha sanya sankha, and papancha sanya sankha pahana, papancha vupasama, papancha nirodha. So compound, as a compound word, adding with certain other words. And the important thing is it has an antonym, so that is the nippapancha. The opposite of papancha is the nippapancha. So that is also sometimes highlighted by the Buddha, and it's a very important term. Actually, a nippapancha is a synonym for nibbana. And in certain suttas, in the Samyutta Nikaya, there are 33, as far as I can remember, terms are being given which are synonyms for nibbana, and nippapancha is one of them. So likewise, you can recognize, so if this nibbana is equal to nippapancha, so then papancha is complete opposite to nibbana. So then what is papancha? So now he is trying to understand by going through various definitions, by going through various suttas and its usage here and there. Now he is trying to find out its own proper understanding, proper definition for this papancha, so that we can apply that various places, and those suttas then become quite evident, quite easy to understand, and practically easy to apply in our own practice. If we have the proper understanding to this word, so the word itself, the meaning itself means sometimes lost. So we don't have the proper understanding about the word, so then how are we going to use it? So first of all, now he is clearing the path so that he is recognizing the term, its usage, and what is the proper definition for that. So that is how he is now laying the foundation for this book. Okay, Saman, we can a little bit further continue.
Yep. If we collate the different context in which some references to papancha has been made, one of our first impressions would be the prominence of it enjoys in a good number of them. When a list of terms relating to a common topic is set out in the suttas, one often finds that the most important among them is either placed first or else is counted last. Now the term papancha is in fact enumerated last in as many as 7 such contexts. If the logic of arrangement alone is deemed insufficient, a deeper analysis of the contexts themselves will provide abundant proof of the fundamental significance of papancha.
Yeah. So let me sorry, I like to give a little explanation here also. Now, as a endnote, he has added what are the suttas which is explained. Basically, there's an endnote given at the end of the book. Let me see. So it is as a footnote actually. It is given as a footnote. Yeah. Sakkapanya Sutta, Madhupindika Sutta, Chula Sihanada Sutta, Kalahavivada Sutta, and there are 2 occasions in the Anguttara Nikaya and then another occasion in the Udana Pali. So likewise, several occasions he is explaining where it is being used. So that is how, in a proper booking, it is quite relevant for the reader to go through and recognize where it is being used and to validate his presentation, to validate his argument. Now those 7 places, Sakkapanya Sutta, available in the Dīඝa Nikāya, Madhupindika Sutta, available in the Majjhima Nikāya, Chula Sihanada Sutta, which is available in Majjhima Nikāya again, Kalahavivada Sutta, again the Sutta Nipāta. Then in Anguttara Nikāya, that sutta is called Bhaddaka Sutta. And another sutta in Anguttara Nikāya is the Anuruddha Sutta, that is, we are going to discuss today. And then in the Udana Pali, which is called Papanchakkaya Sutta. So likewise, he has recognized 7 occasions, 7 places where the importance of the Papancha is listed as the 7th factor or the last factor. So he is giving a beautiful example using the Anuruddha Sutta, available in the Anguttara Nikāya, numerical discourses. So we'll discuss that now. Yeah.
Yeah. Shall I skip the thing that you already said, Bhante, or shall I just read through it?
Maybe you can read through.
Okay. The Sakkapanya of Dīඝa Nikāya, Madhupindika of Majjhima Nikāya, and Kalahavivada suttas, for instance, trace the manifold conflict both in the individual as well as in the society to the question of Papancha. It is also significant that at Anguttara Nikāya, the Buddha himself adds the 8th Mahapurusha Vitakka, a thought of a great man, to Anuruddha's 7, and it concerns Papancha. Well done.
Now,
well done.
Yeah. Okay. So here actually a very interesting situation that Venerable Anuruddha was living alone and he is practicing and before his enlightenment. So you know that Venerable Anuruddha is one of the prominent monks. He later became the foremost in the divine eye. Now he is practicing. Now while he is practicing, he got certain 7 kinds of great thoughts. And he's now thinking about those great thoughts. And while Buddha was recognizing his mentality, and now Buddha comes immediately, almost suddenly, without an invitation. Actually, Buddha appears in front of Venerable Anuruddha, and now he is applauding what Anuruddha has thought, but interestingly, he is adding the 8th Vitakka. So that is the context, and let's listen to our Saman.
Well done. Well done, Anuruddha. Well, have you pondered over the 7 thoughts of a great man? That is to say, this Dhamma is for one who wants little, not for one who wants much. For the contented, not for the discontented. For the secluded, not for one who is fond of society. For the energetic, not for the lazy. For one who has set up mindfulness, not for the laggard therein. For the composed, not for the flustered. For the wise, not for the unwise. But, Anuruddha, do you also ponder over this 8th thought of a great man, to wit, this Dhamma is for one who likes and delights in the Papancha, not for one who likes and delights in Papancha. There's a Pali as well.
Yeah.
Nippapancha sayam dhammo.
Yeah. Let me explain that. Nippapancha ramasayang dhammo, nippapancha ratino, nayan dhammo papancha ramassa papancha ratino. So you may continue, then I'll explain this one.
Yeah. The above series of 8 Mahapurusha Vitakkas seems to follow an ascending order in point of importance. This fact, coupled with the reference to papancha in the concluding stanzas of the sutta, provides a sure index to the high degree of importance attached to this particular term. Hence, the nature of its significance must now be determined.
Okay, so I think for today we can stop here and start a little bit go through what Most Venerable Jnananda Thero has highlighted, particularly in this Anuruddha Sutta. It's a very, very interesting sutta, and it is very important one as practitioners. And what are the points that Venerable Anuruddha was thinking? The first one is called, actually this Dhamma is for the one who wants little, not for one who wants much. So that sometimes in Pali it is called as apicchata. So typically we have various desires. So immense number of desires are there, various wants are there. So as a result of that, mind become agitated. Assume that you are going to a place, a supermarket. Now whatever you see, if you start wanting, then it's very difficult. You can't even afford that. And it's quite difficult to calm down yourself because mind get agitated because so many things are there you need. This is necessary, that is necessary, this is also important, that is also important. Many, many desirable things are there. So if you are gathering like that, then you become somewhat crowded, your house become crowded, your place become crowded, your mind become crowded, and you have to look after everything. It becomes a burden. So it's quite difficult. So for the practitioner, the opposite type of nature is necessary. So basically you have less desires, and you are satisfied with that. So basically, who wants a little? You may go through the supermarket, but you only bought a little, not many things. Only the essential parts you have bought, not because that you didn't have money, but you didn't want. You have them or you don't need them. So earning and using money and spending money and buying as much as possible is not the success. So according to the teaching, now Buddha is mentioning apicchata. So that means even though you have something, maybe the wealth is available, but you are not unnecessarily buying this and that and, crowding yourself. Rather, you are quite happy with what you have, with a little. And the second one, Buddha mentioned, not for one who wants much. And for the contented, not for the one who is discontented. Now, basically, when someone doesn't have something, then he may be discontented because I want this, I want that, that kind of desiring nature is there. But the opposite is mentioned here. Even though you don't have much, you don't need that much. And what you have is enough and you feel contented. So this is enough. I am satisfied. So this is a very interesting feature we have to have. And it's a deep aspect. Actually, assume that you are practicing vipassana meditation. There also you come to a very significant point where you avoid making any kind of desires. Recognizing that it's no point of desiring things. No point of acquiring things. Rather, let me be satisfied in the present moment. Fully satisfied in the present moment. Because sometimes it is quite difficult. Because the craving mind, again and again, making us sort of enslaved to its different demands. But with practice, actually, what we are doing is, rather than becoming enslaved to various demands of the craving or the mara, now we are trying to let go of the craving, let go of desires, and keeping the mind contented. So that is the second one that Venerable Anuruddha is highlighting. And then he mentioned, for the secluded, not for the one who is fond of society. Now, socializing is something that we all know. So people like to socialize, have many friends, many associations, and always want to go to the pub or bar or wherever it is and going to various parties. So people likes this kind of an association. People likes this kind of parties, socializing, etc., etc. Nowadays, sometimes people are not physically going there, but still they are using their own phone and trying to socialize. They have various contacts, they have various, say, buddies and, their own peers, and maybe Facebook or maybe WhatsApp or emails or this and that. So many groups are there. So you are being a known figure within a group, and you have many, many other associates. So this is how we are socializing. We actually like to be socialized. We actually want to become someone within the society, within the group, someone known by the person. So likewise, so this kind of a nature is there. So the Buddha mentioned, now it is the time to reverse that attitude. How about being alone? How about maintaining kind of a seclusion? How about having your own time? Maintaining kind of a tranquility or maintaining kind of a solitude. So this is an interesting situation that Venerable Anuruddha highlighting. So rather than socializing, the opposite is something now the yogi, the practitioner, is now inclined towards. For the Dhamma is for such person. It is not that one is hating the society, that he can't associate others, he don't have any friends. It is not the point. Rather, he may have friends, maybe good friends. He can be with the others without much friction, but at the same time, he's quite happy being alone. He don't feel lonely even though he's alone. So this kind of a mentality. So that is the third one here highlighted by Venerable Anuruddha. And then he mentioned for the energetic, not for the lazy. Now, the practice is sometimes challenging and requires a lot of energy, a lot of effort. There are various obstacles coming on your way. So you need to overcome all those different obstacles. So in order to overcome those obstacles, you need to have a fair energy, a fair encouragement or fair ardency is necessary. If you are lethargic, if you easily give up, then it's quite difficult. So people sometimes start practice and only after a couple of weeks they give up because they expect certain results quickly, but they won't get it, and easily they give up. But on the other hand, if someone is striving, and particularly at the beginning, so they need kind of a striving, they need kind of energy, relentless energy to go through the practice. If not, they will give up. So therefore, the next one that Venerable Anuruddha highlights is not for the lazy, but for the energetic person. The practice is for an energetic person. And then, for one who has set up mindfulness, not for the laggard therein. So sometimes mind gets distracted and thinking about the past, fantasizing about the future, planning, daydreaming, this and that. So things are going on, so one is not mindful. So such way you can't, progress in the practice. So rather you have to establish mindfulness. You have to fully aware what's going on in the present moment. So establishing mindfulness is one of the key points. So that is why mindfulness has become so important. So everything you have to sort of let go, past and the future, and come back to the middle, that is the present moment. There also you have to have some vigilance. You have to be on guard. You have to presence. So that is necessary. Otherwise, if you are absent-minded and you allow the mind to wander and don't have any kind of a grounding, so then it is quite difficult. So therefore, Venerable Anuruddha points it out, basically telling that the practice is for the one who is mindful. And then it is for the person who is composed, not for the flustered. Not only mindful, the mind has to be somewhat concentrated. So if there is a selected object, you have to point it out. You have to properly focus to that. It is true that later, once if one is experiencing kind of a letting go, not grasping anything, mind may release. That's another level of concentration. We can call it as collectedness of the mind. But particularly at the beginning of the practice, you need to have a fair amount of concentration to clearly see various phenomena coming and going, how they are evolving, and such kind of a capacity, such kind of a skill is necessary. Now, Therefore, he highlights, so this practice is for the one who is composed. And then last one he is thinking is that this practice is for the wise and not for the fools, not for the, the unwise. So one has to have a good intellect, has to have some born wisdom, and that is what you are sharpening going through the practice. So that is also a kind of penetrative knowledge, not mere superficial book knowledge, which is highlighted, rather kind of penetrative insights are necessary. So it is for the wise person, not for the unwise person. So these are the 7 types of thoughts occurred in the minds of the Anuruddha. It is being noticed by the Buddha, and you can see how it is coming to a deeper level. Started with very basic wanting a little, and then the one who is contented, and one who prefers seclusion, and one who is energetic, and then one who is mindful, and then he is composed, and then he is wise. It's a kind of a gradual order is there. Ascending order is there. Now, interestingly, Buddha adds this 8th one. Now, you know that he is thinking about this. Now, Venerable Anuruddha is thinking about all these 7 types of vitakkas. So that is why it is called Purisa Vitakka. They are true, but he is thinking about it. He is pondering about that. Now, at right point, Buddha comes and adding the 8th point, 8th factor. So that is related to the Nippapancha. There Buddha mentioned, Nippapancha Ramasayang Dhammo, Nippapancha Ratino, Nayan Dhammo Papancha Ramassa Papancha Ratino. So Buddha highlights, this Dhamma is for a person who prefer Nippapancha, who delights in Nippapancha, but not for the one who likes and delights Papancha. Now, just to add another point, so by hearing this, by understanding this, and including this 8th point to his set of vitakkas, he couldn't continue his vitakkas. So that's an interesting point. It's a kind of a joke actually Buddha made. Where when Anuruddha was thinking, Buddha has given the 8th one to think. But more he understands its meaning, he understands no point of thinking. This thinking is the great obstacle. Now I have to calm down thinking. I have to release thinking. I have to stop thinking. Allow the mind to quiet. Allow the mind to be silent. That is how actually Venerable Anuruddha became an Arahant. So later actually Venerable Anuruddha praised the Buddha, telling that when the Buddha as a compassionate teacher came and introduced this 8th vitakka, 8th point, by contemplating that I understood my problem, I was able to overcome all the vitakkas, and then ultimately I became an Arahant. So it's a very interesting point. So that is why Most Venerable Jnanananda Mahathero is taking this example as a very highlighting point, a crucial point. So there the 8th vitakka is the most important one added by the Buddha. Hearing that, contemplating on that, Venerable Anuruddha became an Arahant. So that indicates the 8th point is utterly important. Very, very important. So then what is Papancha? What is Nippapancha? So crucial, so important. So what is the proper definition of Papancha? So what is the opposite of Papancha? The Nippapancha. What is its real meaning? So that is how, in a way, very beautifully, how Jnanananda Thero is arousing curiosity within us, within the reader, so that we are, searching about it, curious about it. Now we also want to know about it. And we also want to include that 8th vitakka to our practice. Nippapancha Ramasayam Dhammo, Nayan Dhammo, Papancha Ramassa, Papancha Ratino. So this Dhamma is for the one who is preferring Nippapancha, eliminating Papancha, calming down Papancha. Papancha Vupasama, that means you have to let go of Papancha, and you need to prefer Nippapancha, the opposite of Papancha. So we'll see next time. So how he is giving further clarification about these words. And I think it is enough for today. And we can get into the questions if there are. And if you have any questions related to today's Dhamma sermon, our discussion, or if you have any questions related to your own practice, now we can take time as a question and answer session.